Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Tuesday Talks. My name is Molly Polzine. Today, Mariah Kemper and I will be the speakers for this presentation on creditable and non-creditable foods Part 1, which will cover the milk, vegetable, and fruit components for children 1 year and older and for adult daycare participants. We'll continue with Part 2, which will cover the meat alternate and grains components in October. So today we want you to walk away knowing how to identify creditable and non-creditable foods using a new resource called the Creditable and Non-Creditable Foods Guide, understanding what some common creditable and non-creditable foods are, and identifying other available resources to help you with serving creditable foods. So now we're going to go through these points in more detail. The presentation today is going to cover information from a new resource called the Creditable and Non-Creditable Foods Guide that was just posted in August. The guide includes specific information on each meal component, and it also includes lists of creditable and non-creditable foods. Keep in mind this guide is not an all-inclusive list, so be sure to contact your consultant if you need help determining if a food is creditable in the CACFP. And for home providers, contact your home sponsors. The link to this guide is in the chat. We recommend you print a copy and give it to your menu planners and cooks so they can reference it when they need it. So let's get started with the first page and define what creditable and non-creditable foods are. Creditable foods can be served as a component to meet CACFP meal pattern requirements in meals and snacks. To claim a meal for reimbursement, all food components served must be creditable. In each meal component section of the guide, creditable foods are listed in the green boxes. Non-creditable foods do not contribute toward meeting meal component requirements, and if they're served, they must be served as extra foods. However, keep in mind, if you serve non-creditable foods as extras at meals, this just increases your food costs and adds extra calories to the meal that you're serving. And in addition, non-creditable foods are unallowable costs and cannot be paid for with CACFP reimbursement. So you must use other program funding to pay for these foods. In each meal component section of the guide, non-creditable foods are listed in the blue boxes. So today's presentation, we're going to highlight some specific food items from each of these boxes for the milk, vegetable, and fruit components. All right, so let's jump right into the specific components of the meal pattern and start with the milk component. To be creditable, milk must be served as fluid milk. It is not creditable in cooked cereals or soups, but it is creditable when it's poured over cereal and in smoothies. There are specific milk types that must be served for different age groups. For 1-year-olds, they must be served whole milk. And for children 2 years and older, and for adult daycare participants, they must be served 1% or skim milk. And only children 6 years and older and adult daycare participants can be served flavored milk. So now let's talk about creditable and non-creditable milks. A2 milk, which is shown on the screen on the left side, is creditable and is 100% real cow's milk from cows that only have the A2 protein and not the A1 protein. A2 milk is easier on digestion and may help some people avoid discomfort. Also, lactose-free and lactose-reduced milks are creditable alternatives for participants who cannot drink regular cow's milk due to lactose intolerance. Lactose-free and lactose-reduced milks are fluid cow's milk that have been modified with the addition of lactase enzymes. The lactose, which is the milk sugar in this milk, has been broken down into simple sugars that is easier to digest. So people who can't digest lactose due to lactose intolerance may actually benefit from drinking these milks. And these milks have the same taste, texture, and nutrient profile as regular milk. So as you can see on the slide, all these milks come in different fat contents, for example, whole, 1%, and fat-free. Therefore, if you serve these, you must serve the appropriate fat content for the age group you're serving, and the milks must be unflavored for children 1 to 5 years old. So another creditable alternative to cow's milk is soy milk, which we're going to talk about next. So soy milk is a non-dairy beverage that can be served in place of milk for participants who can't drink cow's milk or who prefer not to drink cow's milk. To be creditable, the soy milk must meet the nutrient standards of regular milk. The handout on your screen provides a list of creditable soy milks. It also provides the nutrient content of cow's milk, which must be used to determine if other non-dairy beverages are creditable. However, currently the only creditable non-dairy beverages are the soy milks that are listed on this handout. Non-dairy beverages are not required to be low-fat or fat-free. However, when they're served to children 1 to 5 years old, they must be unflavored. So now let's look at some non-creditable milks in the blue box. Almond, coconut, rice, and oat milks are not creditable. We know these are requested to be served to participants with milk intolerances or sometimes even for personal preference, but they are not creditable because they're not nutritionally equivalent to cow's milk. These may only be served if there is a valid medical statement on file for a disability. Also, 2% milk is not creditable because it does not meet the fat content that must be served to the different age groups, which is whole milk for 1-year-olds and fat-free or 1% milk for children 2 years and older and for the adult day participants. The other items listed in the blue box are not creditable because they are not fluid milk. So now I'm going to turn it over to Mariah to talk about vegetables and fruits.
Thanks, Molly. So vegetables and fruits are two separate components in the CACFP meal pattern. However, some information on what is creditable is the same for both components. So I'm going to go over these first and then talk about each component separately. So for fruits and vegetables, you can serve all forms: fresh, frozen, canned, or dried. And in the last Tuesday talks on veggie and fruit ideas, we gave a lot of ideas on how to serve a variety of fruits and vegetables. So if you missed that one, we recommend checking out the recorded webinar and all of the resources that were provided. And the webinar is posted on the Tuesday Talks website. So now let's talk a few specifics with fruits and vegetables. The information we are covering is listed in this section of the guide. So first is juice. Both fruit or vegetable juice can be served. Juice must be full strength 100% juice. It can be fresh, canned, frozen, or reconstituted with water from concentrate. If juice blends are served, they must be 100% juice or a full strength juice blend. And remember, fruit or vegetable juice can only be served once per day across all meals and snacks, even when served to different groups. Next, let's talk about smoothies. So the pureed vegetables and fruits served in a smoothie are considered juice. This counts as serving juice once per day. And for more information on crediting foods and amounts in smoothies, refer to the link on the screen for the smoothies in the CACFP handout. Now let's talk specifically about vegetables. Let's start with mixed vegetables. So combinations of mixed vegetables such as peas and carrots credit as only one vegetable when the amount of each vegetable in the mixture is not known. So at lunch and supper, when you can serve a second vegetable in place of the fruit component, mixed vegetables only count as one vegetable. So another vegetable must also be served. For example, a side of broccoli or a side of cauliflower. Next, let's talk about cooked dry beans and peas or legumes such as pinto, kidney, or black beans. So these credit as a vegetable, but can also credit as a meat alternate. So if you're serving one type of bean at a meal, it can credit as the vegetable or the meat alternate component, but not as both in the same meal. However, if you serve two different types of beans, for example, black beans in a burrito and hummus, you can count the black beans as the meat alternate and the hummus as the vegetable, or vice versa, if you serve the minimum creditable amount of each item. So now let's point out some creditable vegetables that are listed in the green creditable vegetables box. So as previously mentioned, all fresh, frozen, canned, or dried vegetables are creditable. A few foods that are often mistaken as being creditable to other components, however, are avocados, tomatoes, and potatoes. These foods are creditable as vegetables. Another item you may not be familiar with is pasta made of 100% bean, pea, or legume flours. So it may credit towards the vegetable component based on volume served. For pasta made with less than 100% bean or pea flour, you must obtain a see on label or product formulation statement to credit the item toward the vegetable component. You can also serve vegetable spirals made from fresh vegetables such as squash or zucchini, which are creditable towards the vegetable component based on volume served. There are also a lot of uncommon vegetables listed in this chart, such as ziki beans and gai lan, which is Chinese broccoli or kale. So now let's talk about some foods that are not creditable as vegetables. So the first is grain-based pasta that has small amounts of vegetable powders, such as spinach or tomato, that adds coloring to the pasta. These are not creditable as a vegetable. As I mentioned on the previous slide, for vegetable pastas to be creditable as a vegetable, they must be made from 100% bean, pea, or legume flour. Next is chili sauce, ketchup, and pickle relish. These are also not creditable as vegetables. They are considered condiments. So items such as condiments, spices, and other ingredients used in recipes are not creditable to the meal pattern and cannot count as a meal component, but they may be included as a CACFP food cost. And last, items like potato chips or sticks and veggie straws, chips or sticks are not creditable as vegetables because they are considered a processed snack type food. So now let's talk about some creditable fruits from the green Creditable Fruit box. So as previously mentioned, all fresh, frozen, canned, or dried fruit is creditable. There are many different varieties of fruits to choose from, so you can be very creative and serve different fruits each day, like mango, plums, kiwi, nectarines, strawberries, blueberries, and star fruit. However, some more uncommon fruits are also listed in this box. One example is lychee fruit, which is native to China and has a sweet taste to it. Some people say it tastes like a grape with a hint of rose, or a pear or watermelon. A different way to serve fruit is as a fruit sauce. So fruit sauce must contain visible fruit in each serving to be creditable. So it is recommended to make it homemade by mashing up the fruit, such as berries. Most fruit sauces that you purchase at a store contain an insufficient amount of fruit per serving and are high in sugar. So those are not recommended. You can serve fruit sauces warm on pancakes, waffles, or oatmeal, or cold in a yogurt parfait. And now let's point out some items that are not creditable as fruit. So we previously talked about 100% fruit juice. However, many drinks appear to be juice but are not. For example, fruit drinks that are less than 100% juice, like juice cocktails, fruit punch, or aid drinks such as lemonade and Kool-Aid. So these drinks are not 100% juice and are not creditable. Commercial fried fruit chips, such as banana and other fruit chips, are also not creditable and do not meet the fruit component requirements. These are highly processed items that are typically high in salt and/or sugar and low in nutrients. Also, fruit in store-bought fruited yogurt does not credit as fruit. So the entire volume of the yogurt with fruit may contribute to the meat alternate component, but cannot count towards the fruit component. And also not creditable as fruit are fruit snacks and gummy fruit candy, including 100% fruit strips, leather, fruit drops, or other fruit snack type products. And lastly, Jell-O and gelatin are also not creditable as fruit. So our final thoughts today are to remind you about the USDA Crediting Handbook for the CACFP. Many of the foods on the new Creditable and Non-Creditable Foods Guide are also listed in this handbook. However, the handbook includes more information on why certain items are or are not creditable. So if we did not get to your question, although we did get to all the questions, so we are going to be putting together a Q&A document where we'll put all the questions and our answers together, and we will post that on the Tuesday Talks website along with the recording of this webinar and then the presentation handout as well. So if you do have any other questions you think about after this webinar or just about anything about the CSUP in general, please email your assigned consultant. You can find your agency's consultant at the Consultants by County link on this slide. And if you're a family daycare home provider, reach out to your home sponsor with any questions. And don't forget about past Tuesday Talks that are recorded and available online.